There is a well-known saying, if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance.
This is a new change, it's a new system. You have people that are challenging, that will feel that we've been doing something the same way over and over.
When we talk about digital handshake between a business system and the Nigeria Revenue Service, what we typically mean is the seamless process, the automated process that moves invoices from businesses to the Nigeria Revenue Service and onward to the buyer in real time.
Businesses may be able to use their invoice as a form of collateral. That's the game changer I see in the future. It's a prediction.
It's only when majority of our taxpayers comply with this e-invoicing that we would see the overall benefit of these solutions.
And so if you're a business, you want to have a service provider like a RedTech to guide you through all this. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us from wherever you are across Nigeria, around the world. You're in for a treat today. You are logging in right now live to the RedSpace Webinar, brought to you by the great folks at RedTech with their flagship product, the RedPay Digital Payment Solutions. We are going to be talking about electronic invoicing in Nigeria, tax, regulatory, and compliance demystified. We got experts that are joining us today to demystify any question, comments, or worries you've had about electronic invoicing. This is a technology conversation, an ease of doing business conversation. It is a compliance conversation. And we're very happy that RedTech has put together. RedTech, of course, a subsidiary of the Heirs Holdings conglomerate. They've been shaking up the technology space. Their flagship digital payment solutions platform, RedPay, shaking up the payment space. What was it? I think it was 2024. They crossed 12 trillion naira in transactions, huge milestone, and they're going to continue to shake stuff up. And I love the fact that they call this a red space. I'm showing my age. When you think of the red lion from Voltron, I don't know if you remember Voltron. Valentine's Day is next month, so lots of red. It's a great choice. Great choice. My name is Rotus Odiri. I host the Global Business Report on Arise News, Business Express, Smooth 98.1. And this is coming at a very pertinent time, right? Because the new tax laws from Nigeria are in effect. And so if you're a business, you want to have a service provider like a RedTech to guide you through all this. So over the next hour, I wish it was 2 hours or 3, because this is a very, very deep topic, right? And we got some experts here that are going to be talking to us about this. But over the next hour, for our participants, we're going to take questions from you, but we're going to start with our panel. Actually, before our panel comes in, I'm going to give you a quick video just to familiarize yourself with RedTech. And then after that video, then we're going to jump in, introduce our panelists. Then we're going to get into the questions. Note your questions. We will take them, towards the end of our discussion. So how about we begin with that? Let's kick things off with a little familiarity with RedPay. Let's kick off with a video. Great stuff. Great stuff. You guys catch for our audience. Did you catch the API part? How the RedPay APIs, integrate seamlessly with your business, the application programming interface. You're gonna hear about that. You're gonna hear about that. So let us meet our panelists because it's all about them. They're gonna be shedding knowledge for us. I'm gonna read their profiles. I got 5 awesome people that are going to be with me today. And don't forget, note your questions. And if you want to direct your question, we got a little chat box at the bottom there. Let's start off with our managing director and our CEO, Emmanuel Ojo, who is leading the company's strategic expansion across fintech, very important, and energy technology with over 20 years of experience spanning telecommunications, financial services, corporate finance, M&A, that's mergers and acquisitions, capital markets and investments. Emmanuel Ojo is known for driving innovation and sustainable growth across Nigeria and Africa. He holds an MSc in Business Information Systems from the University of East London and BTech in Industrial Mathematics and Computer Science from FUTA, and has completed executive programs at MIT Sloan, Columbia Business School, and the University of Cambridge. Under his leadership, RedTech delivers impactful flagship solutions that enhance digital transformations and operational efficiency. Emmanuel Ojo, you're welcome. Great to have you, and good to have your leadership with this great company. Let's get to our public sector representative, Mr. Mohamed Bawa, who is a senior product leader and public leader innovator with over a decade of experience driving large-scale digital transformation. He currently leads the product management unit within the Digital Tax Solutions Division at the Nigeria Revenue Service. Remember, we're not saying FIRS anymore. It's NRS. Remember that. You'll be fine. You're going to get an invoice through RedPay if you say FIRS, where he oversees the National E-Invoicing Project, very important, a flagship initiative strengthening tax compliance and transparency across Nigeria. You got to remember those 2 words. Oh, well, I think it was more than 2 words. We're going to be talking about that a lot. Mohamed Bawa has played a key role in delivering high-impact national systems, including Tax Pro Max, VAT automation, and e-stamp duty, supporting the modernization of Nigeria's tax administration. He's a fellow of the African Leadership University. He brings strong expertise in products, strategy, stakeholder management, and technology-driven public sector reform. Mr. Bawa, you're very welcome. I think he kicks things off. We're going to hear from him. All right, let's also introduce Adenike Enea Friday, who is a seasoned tax and finance leader with over a decade of experience across compliance, advisory, and financial management. Adenike is a CITN and ICANN certified professional, and she's built her experience at Farinde Olateju & Co. and spent 9 years at Deloitte, rising to tax manager and leading complex tax engagements across planning, structuring, and due diligence. I told you, taxes melt my brain. So happy to have Adenike with us. She's currently finance manager at RedTech Limited, where she supports NRS, e-invoicing initiatives, driving digital transformation, streamline compliance, and operational efficiency. And I think I got a middle name incorrect. Emeya, Adenike Emeya Friday. All right, Adenike, you're welcome. Let's introduce Mr. Chik Sise, a seasoned tax leader with 15 years of experience across multiple industries and international markets. He holds an MSc in International Tax and Business and has led tax functions across FMCGs, fast-moving consumer goods, telecommunications, oil and gas, and banking, with experience spanning West and Central Africa, Switzerland, and South Africa. He is currently the group head of tax at UBA Group, bringing strong regional perspective and strategic leadership. Mr. Sise, you are very welcome. And let's also introduce Nwamaka Osueze Itie. She's a senior tax leader with over 12 years of experience across tax strategy, planning, compliance. Nwamaka is currently group tax manager at Heirs Holdings, which of course is where RedTech is a subsidiary of, overseeing group-wide tax operations across multiple sectors and jurisdictions. Previously, she held senior tax advisory roles at PwC and Deloitte. So she and Adenike have a shared tax history with Deloitte. And Nwamaka has been advising multinationals and local clients on complex keeps coming up with taxes. Complex tax audits and transfer pricing matters. She's a CITN fellow, ICANN associate, NIM graduate member. Omamaka is also known for her strong analytical depth, strategic insight, and leadership excellence. All right, that, ladies and gentlemen, is our panel. Let me quickly kick off with Mr. Mohammed Abawa at the Nigeria Revenue Service. Mr. Abawa, lay the groundwork for us, sir, right? We want to see adoption, right? Widespread. I bet you want to see that over at the NIRS for e-invoicing. So can you talk to us about the implementation roadmap when it comes to electronic invoicing? Mr. Abawa, floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much, Rutos, for that introduction. And I also want to use this opportunity to thank RedTech for organizing this, and also to thank all our audience that have joined this call to talk about e-invoicing, to join the need to drive adoption of this solution, which is basically what we need at this initial phase. It's very, very important for us to drive adoption, because it's only when majority of our taxpayers comply with this e-invoicing that everyone, all the stakeholders, would see the overall benefit of this solution. So for FIRS, it's simple. I'm happy you said roadmap. So from the beginning, as FIRS, we see this implementation as a journey, not as a destination. We see it as something that will take some time to implement. So because of that, we phase out the project into different phases. Phase 1, for the large taxpayers, with turnover threshold of 5 billion naira and above. Phase 2, for medium taxpayers, which are within the category of 5 billion and below to 1 billion. And then the emerging or smaller taxpayers, which have a turnover of 1 billion naira and below. And so that is how we structure our taxpayers within FIRS. So based on this, each phase, we have different milestones for each phase. So we started with the large taxpayers, which we did for large taxpayers. Throughout last year, we were engaging the large taxpayers. So each phase, we have like 5 different milestones, kicking off with the stakeholder engagement and sensitization aspect, which we needed to do for each sector to really understand the nature of businesses, the readiness of each sector, the peculiarities, in order for us to tailor the system to the needs of our stakeholders. Now, after the stakeholder engagement, we now have to do a pilot phase, right? Basically, like selecting few taxpayers within that sector, especially those that are willing. So we extended invitation to several large taxpayers to join the pilot, so that we'll be able to test actually what we've implemented, identify a few issues, and then fix it before we probably go live. So first milestone, stakeholder engagement and sensitization. Second milestone, doing a pilot. The third milestone is to go live, meaning that, okay, extending that go live now to all the large taxpayers, making it like mandatory for all large taxpayers. So we did the announcement for large taxpayers, I think it was 1st of August, and then we later extended it to November 1st. Now, after that, then the next is to review the implementation for large taxpayers, which we are yet to actually do, right? So it's part of our plan to do it in this first quarter this year. We intend to have that review session with all the stakeholders concerned, the service providers, and our large taxpayers that have implemented or are in the process of implementing, to review challenges, identify areas for enhancement, and then before now we can think of giving a deadline for enforcement to enforce compliance, right? So it's important to note the key milestone: stakeholder engagement, pilot run, go live, post-implementation review, and then enforcement compliance. So each phase is going to have these 5 key deliverables or milestones to set. So after the first phase, we move to the next phase, which is for the medium taxpayers with a turnover threshold of 5 billion naira to 1 billion, and then to the emerging. So each phase is going to run for a year. So this year, basically, we are going to be focused more on the medium taxpayers, and then next year we will focus on the emerging and small taxpayers, following the same milestone as we did in the large taxpayer. So basically, we have like a 3-year plan right? So you can see that it's not something that we are rushing to implement because we understand the need to have buy-in from all key stakeholders. This is a project that benefits all the different stakeholders within the ecosystem, from the service providers to taxpayers to the NRS to Nigeria as a whole, and then to the citizens, because eventually we're going to increase revenue, which is going to benefit all the citizens. So we try to sell it from each stakeholder's perspective. So we try to show the need for each stakeholder to key into this project, not just seeing it from the NRS point of view, right? So this is so important for our stakeholders to understand. And so far, so good. We have seen a significant number of large taxpayers implementing this solution. As I'm speaking now, we're receiving a lot of invoice data from several large taxpayers, and even some of the large taxpayers are already mandating their suppliers to actually to bring electronic invoice, right? Making the adoption now to cascade to different layers. So we actually have taxpayers within different segments outside the large taxpayers implementing e-invoicing because their merchants are asking them to supply them with e-invoicing, and exactly how we plan to do it. That's why we are not enforcing everyone at the same time. We believe that at some point the system would self-regulate itself and everyone will see the need to actually implement the solution. Thank you very much, Protus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bawa, by laying out laying the groundwork for us, because this has macroeconomic ramifications, right? In terms of Nigeria trying to raise her non-oil revenue and depend less on oil. So fantastic. Now, you were saying FIRS in the beginning. I was going to send you an invoice, but later you started saying NRS. So we'll skip that. We'll skip that. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. All right. Adenike, let me come to you. I mean, Mr. Bawa he's laid it out for us. And now he's talked about stakeholder engagement, pilot phase, going live, then after going live, a post-live review. He talked about, all the players that are involved. But Adenike, I want you to talk to us to flesh out synergy, compatibility, digital handshake between, the business systems, right? Because it was in your video. I saw that in the video, the Red Tech video, and the NRS, what the NRS is trying to do, with a special focus, I guess, on invoice validation. Adenike, if you can touch on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Rotus, for that question. So when we talk about digital handshake between a business system and the Nigeria Revenue Service, what we typically mean is the seamless process, the automated process that moves invoices from businesses to the Nigeria Revenue Service and onward to the buyer in real time. Typically also ensuring that they are validated and they are compliant. And so, for example, in the case of B2B transactions, so that's business to business transactions, right? So the flow typically works like this. So the supplier would generate an invoice in their ERP or the managed invoices system, and then it will submit it through their access point provider to the Nigeria Revenue Service for validation. And then the system will typically issue a unique invoice registration number once the invoice passes through the validation process. And then from there, the invoice is transmitted to the buyer's access point provider, and then finally to the buyer. So that ensures that both parties have accurate validated records and that the invoice can be processed smoothly. But then there are also cases of business to customer transactions where the flow is slightly simpler. So in this case, the supplier would send the invoice from the system to the access point provider and then to the NRS, which validates it and then issues a unique invoice registration number. And so once the invoice passes validation and delivers it directly to the buyer, so the NRS typically acts as the central hub for validation and delivery. But in all cases, it's very important to note that invoices need to be complete and correctly structured from the start because it's mapped to the NRS invoicing schema, right? Usually in JSON or XML with all the mandatory fields captured. And so pre-validation routines are very important because they help catch minor errors before submission because there are certain tax attributes that are required for successful validation of invoices. Items like the supplier details, tax identification number, the address, the customer details, tax identification number, the invoice issue date, item line descriptions, VAT, withholding tax rates, and the product and service classification coding is very important. And so finally, the digital handshake is not just technical, it's mainly an operational framework, because the key is making sure that your data is accurate, your processes are organized, and you have a clear record of every transaction. And so for us at RedTech, as an approved access point provider and systems integrator, we actually help clients to ensure compliance in this regard. And so this would typically help to cut down on mistakes, keep you compliant, and also make reporting much easier. So basically, whether it's in the case of business to business transactions or business to customer transactions, this framework will typically ensure that invoices are accurate, compliant, and delivered efficiently, while reducing, manual errors and allowing teams to focus on oversight rather than troubleshooting issues. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Adenike. I had operational framework, and I also heard a lot about what can make things a lot easier for businesses in terms of invoice validation, also keeping their records, and how RedTech is playing an important role. I'm seeing questions already. Mr. Bauer, you already have a question from one of our participants. We'll get to that. We're going to segment some time from our audience, but I think that's from Dominic. Dominic, I see your question to Mr. Bauer. We'll get to that in just a moment. Let's go to Mr. Cisse next. Mr. Cisse, you're the head of tax at UBA. We've been hearing a lot about VAT, value-added tax, VAT, along with the tax laws that have been passed. How do you think, Mr. Cisse, electronic invoicing can impact VAT, input VAT, reporting accuracy, and the like? What's your thoughts on that, Mr. Cisse?
Thank you, Rotus, for the question, and thank you, Red Team, for this invitation and the opportunity to be part of this panel discussing e-invoicing. So in terms of key expectation, I think the first one is tax transparency. When you talk about VAT, our first expectation is tax transparency. We know the electronic fiscal system is fundamentally a data collection and a real-time reporting mechanism, right? So for large corporates such as UBA, right, who is handling millions of customers and high transaction volume, we think that this new system will definitely enhance operational visibility and integrity. Right. Just for example, the structure nomenclature with NIRS portal, right? Particularly the key attributes mentioned earlier by Adenike, such as the identified invoice reference number, the tax ID, right? And other authenticated data will just provide a clear, verifiable, and more comprehensive view of the transactional activity in regards to VAT. Okay, so after that tax transparency in terms of that, I think also strengthening digitalization is imperative as the global economy become increasingly technology driven, right? So all our countries must therefore modernize their legal and administrative framework to keep pace with this transformation, right? And the adoption of the e-invoicing, I think it will represent a key policy response to the evolving economic realities, definitely. Okay, so the third point also that came to my mind is when efficiency. The management of VAT back duty audit, for example, right? I think that with this e-invoicing, it will be more streamlined, right? NIRS being at this, NIRS, not FIRS, NIRS being positioned at the center of the process, has already all those information, all the vatable transaction, related report, and so on, right? It will simplify the way the audit is being managed, right? So me, as UBA, a taxpayer, right, I will no longer need the exchange of supporting documents because all those documents, NIRS has it already with this platform, right? So that's why I think it will increase the efficiency of our operation. You mentioned earlier also the VAT. I truly think that also it will impact positively the input VAT credit claim, right? I will recall that effective 1st of January 2026, the scope of recoverable input VAT is now extended. all taxable persons are now entitled to a refund of excess of VAT not utilized as a credit. So within the timeline, 5 years, right? You can now claim for a VAT credit. So, and again, as a taxpayer, right, it's widely recognized that claiming tax credit can be a challenging process, right? My friend Bauer, usually the revenue authorities, right, they are primarily focused on maximizing collection, not giving back tax credit, right? However, under the principle of tax justice and tax equity, the NRS is equally obligated to refund any excess of tax at the taxpayer, right? So this introduction of automated and time-bound mechanism of tax credit refunds will also help about the transparency, efficiency, and fairness of the entire process of tax credit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cisse. Thank you so much. Data collection, transactions in real time, enhancing operational visibility, and how this is going to assist with the input VAT credits. Great stuff. Let me bring in our CEO and MD, Mr. Emmanuel Ojo, just to give us his view from, his overview. Emmanuel Ojo, I guess from a strategic lens, right? We've heard from Adenike, heard from Mr. Cisse. I know we're going to hear from Nwamaka in just a moment, but I did want to get your thoughts on RedTech's role, how it fits between government's revenue collection drive and compliance for business. How do you see with the role you all are playing there?
Thank you very much, Rotus. Glad to have you here. First and foremost, I'd like to say that I hope you will not issue us a special invoice, because in the video there was still FRS. That's to show you when the video was made. So we are pleading for you not to issue us a special invoice, and also to appreciate the federal government for this initiative. The president of our republic, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, through the NRS for this laudable initiative. And we also want to recognize our group chairman of Hess Holdings, Mr. Tony Lumenu, CFR, for allowing RedTech to have this platform to express, our creative mindset. So I'll start by recognizing what is the size of the ecosystem, because it's a game of numbers. The size of the ecosystem here, we're talking about over 25 trillion taxable data, that we're talking about here. So we need people to first appreciate what we are doing here. Second of all is to look at what does RedTech bring to the table, and what is the benefits, of government and businesses. I think first and foremost, just like what the previous speakers have mentioned, in terms of automation and digitization, the benefit to the government is revenue assurance, because here the government is now able to have data integrity, through invoices having unique identification, and then transmission and validation of those transmission, can be processed through cryptographic process, encryptions. And that brings about data integrity, accountability from the government side. From the business side as well, we'll be able to streamline compliance. So again, what the NRS e-invoicing system does is that through a single standard, it can attend to multiple channels. What I mean by multiple channels is that we have multiple business sectors, in Nigeria. So through a single standard, we can accommodate invoices from multiple business environments. Then in terms of the third one will be in terms of cost. Obviously, it lowers the cost for the ecosystem, the onboarding of clients onto this RedTech e-invoicing platform in collaboration with the NRS centralized system. So companies are able to identify competent companies like RedTech. I'm happy to say that RedTech was one of the first set of 30 companies to be approved by the NRS as a system integrator and access point provider, and we're also listed on their website. So essentially, companies can confirm our authenticity by going to the NRS system. We're listed there, and that way, what we bring to the table is lowering their cost of onboarding, of processing with minimal errors, and without disruption to the existing business process. So I think I'll stop there at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So our Managing Director and CEO, Emmanuel Ojo, there with his view on how RedTech is fitting into this ecosystem, assisting the government in its revenue drive and also compliance for business. Nwamaka is here. Let me come to you, Group Tax Manager at Harris Holdings. Harris Holdings, big conglomerate. You got a lot of subsidiaries. RedTech is one of them. Can you talk to us, Nwamaka, about practical considerations and I guess challenges in implementing electronic invoicing when you've got that large number of subsidiaries and so on?
Thanks, Rotus. So even though I serve as a group tax manager, I also have support across the group. For example, Nike. All right, thank you. So I'll say that when e-invoicing started, one of the key things we looked at was compliance. If it is too expensive to comply, then that will be a disincentive. So at first, I saw one of the questions in the chat talking about compliance, and that was also a big issue for us, that why should compliance be very expensive? So what I'll say also tie into all of this. So when we looked at the group as a whole, we checked what are the type of entities we had. We categorized our business. We checked what are the different sectors. Harris Holding plays in more than 8 sectors in Nigeria. You can imagine more than 8 industries within one country, Nigeria. So after looking through, we also checked the businesses, what are their sizes? What do each of them do? And then we also consider that there's also this argument, or should I say the internal drama between taxpayers and the Nigerian Revenue Service, or formerly FRS, on understanding what a revenue is. Because sometimes when the tax authorities have reviews, they might not be able to understand the full value chain. And that is also part of things that invoicing is bringing solutions to. So what we did, and one of the big challenges in selecting a service provider, is that you need someone that would actually sit down, work with you to understand your business. So let's not just look at Harris Holding Group. Let's also look at any other group or any other company that wants to bring in invoicing. So you need someone that will understand your business, that will also understand the inner workings. Whether you're an SME, whether you're a big business, can you give me a module that will speak to my needs? If I say I'm doing integration of ERPs, and then speaking of ERPs, that's like the core system. Within the group, we have the financial service companies that use very complex ERPs. Then we have some other companies that use a bit more simplified ERPs, like the real estate. So we need someone that would come in and say, no matter the ERP that we're using, can you understand it? Can you align with what we want to deliver? Will it be automated? Will it be real time? Will it be batched? So in selecting a service provider, that was one of the challenges. And even though we have RedTech, we still went out and did a full-scale review because we wanted a situation where the tax authorities will also see that we analyze before selecting a service provider. Then another thing I will say, another challenge which people should not forget is that this is a new change, is a new system. You would have people in Nigeria, let's not beyond a company, you have people that are challenging, that will feel that we've been doing something the same way over and over. Why should we change it? So that means that within the company, you must train the people, you must train the systems, you must let them understand the reason why this is changing. You would also explain to them that even though it is a government initiative, it's also helping you as a company because it's strengthening your internal controls. It is also helping the different teams because there's real-time integration. Finance can see the documents on time. NRS can see the documents on time. So it's last, if you look at it, it's a win-win situation. So that's when you look at the challenges are not really challenges, they're more opportunities. That's my opinion on this.
Like that, Nwamaka. It's not really challenges, they're more opportunities. Thank you so much for breaking that down. Mr. Bawa, let me come back to you. Since Nwamaka mentioned challenges, or rather looking at them as opportunities. You laid this out for us, Mr. Bawa, in the beginning: stakeholder engagements, pilot phase, going live, and then checking for any issues after going live with your stakeholders. What does NRS have in place to assist companies that are facing any technical challenges, if you will, during onboarding or early adoption, Mr. Bawa?
Thank you very much, Rutos. Let me also start by appreciating all the various speakers. And the answer is straightforward. Maybe I should start by saying, reach out to RedTech, because that's why we have them there, basically. Right, so we deliberately, position these service providers within this ecosystem to provide that kind of support, and that's why they're like an intermediary between the businesses and the NRS in terms of the roles they play as system integrator and access point. So we believe for any service provider to pass through the accreditation process and to get our endorsement, to get published, and also to be doing this kind of webinar, they must be in a very good position to address whatever challenges that might come, that any business will come across during the implementation. And if there's anything that is beyond them, then they will escalate to the service. So first of all, the service providers have been well positioned to provide this kind of first level support, because the NRS is not a technology company, even though as we try to automate, we are not going to be there to be there for every taxpayer. Of course, there are times when we have to speak to some tax issues, to set up a meeting to clarify one or two concerns. But we did not envisage a situation where we would be the ones to be providing this kind of technical support. So people have to understand that. So we always encourage businesses, please reach out to your service providers, and the list have been made public, And then secondly, even before we started this journey, we ensured that our e-invoicing portal is rich enough with a lot of information first, right? We developed a knowledge-based portal that has every information you require regarding the e-invoicing. As a layman, if you go to that website today, you will understand everything about e-invoicing. And then secondly, how to onboard, right? What you need to do. And even our various presentations we've done during our stakeholder engagements, we've made it public. Right, our videos and everything has been made there. So that is the first point of call to look for any information, or if you encounter any challenge, to answer any questions you have for us. And then secondly, when you begin your implementation, we also have what we call the developers community, whereby as anyone doing the implementation, you can go there and ask any technical question. Not even technical, any question relating to invoicing. If you put it in the developers community, you will do a search to find whether that question has been answered before. If it has been answered before, you will find the answers there. If it has not been answered before, our team will pick up that question and provide answer for the benefit of everyone, right? And then thirdly, we also set up virtual meetings. We have a stakeholder a calendar, an engagement portal where you can go and schedule any meeting. So through that, our e-invoicing portal, if you go look for schedule and engagement with our team, we have a calendar there. As a service provider or as anyone doing the implementation, you can schedule a meeting with our team, and automatically we'll send you a virtual link for that day to have a 30 minutes virtual call to respond to any query you have. And I'm sure some people that are on this call will confirm that. We are currently working on building a simulation portal. Like I said, this is a journey for us. So within that last year, we have visited few countries to also benchmark what we're doing against what they've done against what we're doing, and try to make some improvements. So we are developing a simulation portal that allows any taxpayer or service provider to go and simulate the process end to end, from invoice generation to invoice transmission, IRN, cryptographic stamp, all the processes involved. You'll be able to simulate to see how it looks like, even before you even begin your implementation, so that it will even guide you during your implementation. And when you finish, you can schedule a UAT with us to test what you have done, even before you move to production. So we try to make the experience to be as seamless as possible, because we know the number of taxpayers we are dealing with, right? We know the number, so we have to deliberately put all those things in place. And we're also trying to make a lot of improvements. For example, somebody was asking about the SME portal, SMEs. So we also seen in other countries what they've done is that for some categories of companies that don't generate a certain number of invoices in a year, So those ones will not have to go through the integration process, so they can rely on the invoice generation portal, which we are also working on. But it's only limited to a maximum number of invoice. So if you come to our portal and generate up to that number maximum, you'll not be able to do more. So because we are careful about not to design a system that everyone will come to use, at the same time, right? And of course, we are currently working on our ticket generation portal for issues. So when you come, you generate a ticket, it will assign a number, and then people will. So we're quite mindful of decentralizing the support system, right, in such a way that whenever you're looking for any information or help, it will be there for you at your disposal. So please take advantage of the existence of our accredited service providers like RedTech. If you have any inquiry, I'm sure even if they are not implementing for you, if you reach out to them for information, they will provide answers to questions. And of course, our emails are on the NRS portal. Our emails, our phone numbers, you can call the contact center of the NRS if you have any issues relating to this. So we'll continue to build on that. And of course, stakeholder engagement will continue. Workshops will continue to ensure that we are available, we make ourselves available to any questions you have for us. Thank you very much, Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Bawa. That was very comprehensive. Simulation portal, ticket generation, setting up virtual meetings. There's a lot of work that's been gone into this here on the public sector side. And as you mentioned, talk to your service provider like a RedTech for further assistance. Decentralizing the support system. I like that, Mr. Bawa. Decentralizing the support system so that RedTech players like that can play a role as well as the public sector. So I think this is a good time to play the video again. All right. Just to refresh again, we played that at the top of the hour, and my goodness, I still have to hear from Mr. Sise. I still got to hear from our CEO, MD Manuel Ojo, and Maka, and also, of course, from our participants who are already sending questions. Okay, so let me quickly go to Mr. Sise, head of tax at UBA. Mr. Sise, earlier, prior answer, you were talking about real-time invoicing, of course, and I wanted to find out from your perspective, as far as a large financial institution like a UBA, how real-time invoicing helps with, I guess, from a data integrity angle, how what we're discussing here keys into that for a large institution like UBA.
Well, there is a well-known saying that if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. right? So the meaning is clear. All the financial cost of fines, penalties, combined with the stress and operational disruption resulting from non-compliance will almost exceed the normal cost of compliance, right? So, and the good thing is RedTech, we worked with RedTech, right, has emphasized that these compliance costs, related costs are highly manageable, right? So I encourage all the participants and all the ones who will follow this webinar to engage RedTech to make sure that they comply. You know, this when you say real-time invoicing data, right? I really think that the process of general invoicing will help me as a corporate managing like a highly transaction volume and thousands of customers. So I will not see this invoicing as additional burden. I will see it as an improvement, right? I will not see it as a constraint. I will not see it as a new compliance requirement that will result where non-compliance will result in fines and penalties. Instead of all things, I just believe that this real data invoicing will be a measure that enhances my operational efficiency. You know, as at today, some processes could still rely on manual intervention, right? Such as reviewing the report, uploading, completing missing mandatory tax attribute, right? And other human driven check, which we know that this can lead to errors or gaps or delay. We talk about real-time invoicing. So, and I think this project or this journey will help fix this because everything is live, everything is on time, so you can track, you can check. Just as I mentioned earlier, you know, I've also seen it as another layer of internal control. What I mean with that is, we mentioned earlier this business to business, like me, UBA, I'm paying my vendor, the one that have provided service to me. By using this portal, it will make me confirm that before I make any payment, I check online. It's real, it's like time bound, and before I make any payment to my vendor, right? And then my procurement team can liaise with the vendor and confirm that everything is okay before processing any invoice. So that's why I truly think that this new process is very helpful in terms of managing your efficiencies, managing your operational activities and everything, due to the fact that it's real time. So we are just managing this real time invoicing. Thank you.
Mr. Cisse, thank you so much for that. Adenike, I want you to piggyback off that because he was talking about, you know, some of the errors and gaps that can happen. So Adenike, if we're looking at a business that is transitioning, you know, to electronic invoicing, can you touch on some of those common tax data gaps or errors that can pop up?
Okay, thank you, Rotus. So from what we've seen working with different companies, there are a few common data and process gaps that usually cause invoices to fail validation, especially when businesses try to move into real-time invoicing. And so the first one is master data. That is like one of the major data gaps. So because a lot of organizations are coming from legacy systems, so you typically see missing or incorrect tax identification numbers, business names that don't quite match what's on the NRS system, or addresses that are not typically consistent. And then also closely tied to that is the customer profiling, because NRS wants structured information. So things like, primary contact, a properly broken down address with LGA, postal code are very important. And so while this may sound small, if they are missing at the point of invoicing or creating the e-invoices, the invoices would simply not validate. And then another common challenge is the tax configuration and invoice structure. Because, for invoices, the value-added tax, withholding tax, and other tax types must be correctly mapped to the NRS taxonomy. And so that involves selecting, appropriate invoice type, applying the correct tax category at line level, ensuring that the rates are accurate, because real-time invoicing also has strict requirements for certain mandatory fields, like I mentioned. And so we also see a lot of issues around product and service classification. So because every invoice line typically needs an item code, so NRS already has those structured item codes, based on the item codes released earlier. But many businesses have not historically worked with that level of detail. And so when these item codes are missing or incorrect, we start seeing line level validation failures. And then on the technical side, there are also formatting issues. So formatting issues, again, are very common at the early stages because invoices have to be sent in either XML or JSON with the right data format, the decimals, the character encoding, and all of that. So even in cases where taxes are calculated correctly, the invoices can still be rejected because of some technical or formatting issues. And then as I wrap up, so beyond that, there are also practical challenges around ERP integration and B2C transactions. So there are cases of, we have cases where customers are not yet onboarded to invoicing. For example, customers that are below the 5 billion naira threshold for invoicing. And so in those instances, businesses will typically have to rely on B2C transmission model as a temporary solution pending when they get onboarded and register for invoicing. And so what we notice is that while that keeps these businesses compliant, it creates some reconciliation issues because some of those invoices that are passed through the B2C transmission are treated as paid, even when cash has not actually come in. And so that is why having strong audit trails and bank statements and clear documentation becomes very important. And then there is even also the angle of cross-border transactions, which add another layer because, Nigerian vendors will that have cross-border transactions will eventually need to register for a pan-European public procurement online ID to support international invoicing. But while the process is still being finalized, companies usually adopt B2C transmission as a temporary option for invoicing foreign customers, basically. And then, all of these issues said and these gaps said, this is where a solution like RedText, RedPay invoicing managed services really helps because as an NRS accredited system integrator and access point provider, we don't only help or enable businesses, but even those without a full ERP, we help businesses to issue validated invoices, manage all these mandatory data fields, and also help companies who choose to follow the approach of ERP integration to integrate with their ERP systems, just to ensure that they fully stay compliant with NRS requirements. So overall, most validation failures are actually very preventable. And so when businesses focus on, master data compliance, proper integration, pre-validation checks, which are very important, compliance becomes much smoother. And so at the end of the day, real-time invoicing is not just about connecting to an API and application program interface. It's also about data readiness, properly structured invoices, and that's what exactly RedPay's invoicing solution helps organizations manage effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Adenike. It's important. You've said so much. You gotta have an audit trail and bank statements in case there's a gap, so you can go back and it's good to see that RedPay is going to be hand-holding these businesses through the transition process. I have to squeeze in Nwamaka and Emmanuel Ojo in the next 5 minutes. So I don't know how briefly both of you can give this, guys. I still want to get into these questions from our participants. Nwamaka, E-invoicing, can you talk about this from a tax governance perspective as far as, visibility, capacity management, and so on and so forth? Can you quickly touch on that for us, Nwamaka?
Okay, I'll be very brief. So from tax governance, just let me go back to what Sheikh said when he mentioned single point of entry. So what you can look at in visibility is that invoicing will allow each company or each person, once you open the platform, to see everything relating to your company. You'll be able to see all the invoices that are issued. And then at the same time, even though invoicing is about the invoices you send out, on the platform, you can also see the invoices you receive. So he also mentioned something about VAT. If you remember well, when he mentioned input VAT, that can now be claimed beyond goods. We can also claim it on services. So a simple way for you to claim it or for you to be able to track what are the invoices I've received that are being validated by the FRS also from the platform. Although what I'll say, also going to what Mr. Bauer said, he mentioned that the platform, even though it has been put up, there are still some updates that we are seeing. For example, from my own end, for the entities that have been onboarded fully, what we're seeing is that some of them are still having challenges with pulling the reports in the right format. So all of that's still being worked on. So I'll say this is work in progress. So when all of that is done, it will be much better. But my advice to companies now is run parallel, do your invoicing and also continue with what you have been doing before, but continue with the invoicing, run parallel, number one. Then number two is that for medium companies, even though it's not yet compulsory, based on the implementation plan he has given, that for the 1 billion to 5 billion next year, the other ones per year, even though it's not yet compulsory, my advice, which is also what we've implemented here, is that those beyond that threshold should also start invoicing. So that makes compliance easier by the time it becomes compulsory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wamaka. Emmanuel Joe, let me wrap up with you for the panelists. I guess I just want you to give your thoughts on public-private partnership, because this is kind of what we're talking about here in terms of what RedTech is doing as a service provider, NRS, and also your outlook, Emmanuel Joe. You see, electronic invoicing growing over the years, as briefly as you can.
All right, thank you very much, Rotus, and I'll try to squeeze a little questions in. Okay, so from a private-public partnership, I think it's quite straightforward. In the relationship between RedTech and NRS, obviously NRS represents the government body where they provide the policy, the governance structure, trust and control, while RedTech, as a private sector-led technology company, we are going to be in charge of, designing the system, implementing the system, operating the system, which we have done now, and then we're supporting with special incentives to onboard organizations. In terms of outlook, I think it's also an opportunity to show the capacity of RedTech. When you say, if you have a laptop and you start doing some programming, you can just get a business and call yourself a technology company, but in reality, that's just a side hustle. That's just a hustler, So in RedTech, we are very structured. We have employees of over 200 years in terms of combined work experience. We've been here for 5 years. We're well certified. We're certified by the Central Bank of Nigeria. We're certified by NCC. And now recently we've been certified by NRS in terms of our e-invoicing solution. So we have a lot of certifications. In fact, with regards to this NRS e-invoicing solution, it has to do with data integrity, data security. We're also certified ISO 27001, where we maintain data integrity. So in terms of outlook, I believe that this is going to challenge a lot of technology companies out there to ensure that the institute structures in their operations, and also to ensure that they are also accountable, for their operations. I believe that through the next phase of automation is that we will be able to integrate this e-invoicing in acceptance solution. You recall that RedTech launched his payment RedPay products last year, which is an acceptance solution for MSMEs. I think that if I'm to predict the future, this can be integrated to acceptance solutions, whereby online real-time data transmission can happen. I also believe that just like in 2001, when telecommunications companies were licensed to drive GSM, we didn't know how far this would go. But as a result of that, it caused an explosion in the fintech industry that is contributing 19% to the GDP as of today. Without that GSM licensing by the federal government, there won't be much of fintechs as of today. That's the explosion. So for me, my other prediction is that this invoicing may get to a point where businesses may be able to use their invoicing, their invoice rather, as a form of collateral, because you can validate that I've invoiced this person 100 million, 1 billion, and you need to take a loan from a financial institution, and the financial institution can validate that, okay, you are owed by this other entity. Definitely the money is coming. And maybe there can be a scale up in the process whereby rather than the money come back to you, if you've used the solution, your invoice as a form of collateral for a loan that you've taken, the money can go to the financier of that loan. That's the game changer I see in the future. It's a prediction. The next other prediction I also see is that foreign entities would tend to respect and recognize invoices from businesses, local businesses in Nigeria. That way, it will minimize scrutiny, of all partnerships that we have to do in the international community. The net gain, finally, for me, is that from the government perspective, is that this provides a trusted, timely revenue data and also a wider coverage of compliance for the government. And from the business, again, it provides an automated pathway for you to ensure compliance, with minimal fees, minimal errors, and without disrupting your business operations. So that would be my rant. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Emmanuel. I saw a lot of thumbs up emojis going up at the bottom right of the screen. So it looks like a lot of folks are keying into your predictions of where things are going to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm going to take a quick, we're out of time, but we're going to just squeeze in a question from yours. But I do want to tell you all about an opportunity, just so I don't forget, a compliance as a service, right? So there's a referral and reseller program for RedPay invoice solution. So basically, RedPay has, of course, launched this referral and reseller program for the RedPay E-Invoice platform. So it's offering compliance as a service to businesses across Nigeria. So the program basically empowers individuals, consultants, professionals, and firms to generate recurring revenue while referring and helping their clients achieve regulatory compliance under the NRS framework. So if you're interested, register using the shared link, which I'm sure the tech folks are going to share, or engage with the RedPay team immediately after this particular session. So there's a great opportunity there. All right. Now, real quick, because I know that we are out of time. Let me just quickly take this question. I'm going to throw it out there. I want to see who is going to take this one. This is from Iola Adediji. Says, good afternoon, everyone. Very enlightening session. This is the question. Can the NRS RedTech e-invoicing template be used to also meet the needs of Lagos and indeed other states' revenue service invoicing requirements for the purpose of tax documentation? In other words, can it be integrated with the state's invoicing platforms? I don't know who, I'm throwing it out there. Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, so I expected RedTech to answer, but the answer is simply yes. What we've done, it's universally accepted across Nigeria. That's why we're NRS. That's why the name has been changed from FRS to NRS, right? I think that's a simple answer. Thank you.
I think they wanted to hear from you. They didn't want to jump the gun. They wanted to hear from the NRS directly.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, exactly. All right. Let me quickly throw this other in there. This is from Abdul Razak Oluwaseun. He says, I have a question. It says, great webinar. His question in regards to e-invoicing, what is the timeline for registration for SMEs as opposed to the previous thresholds of businesses of $1 billion and above? As far as SMEs, maybe I don't know, perhaps I may be thrown to Mr. Bao as well.
Let me also briefly clarify this, right? So we're working on publishing the entire 3-year timetable plan. We've not published that yet, right? So in trying to answer your question relating to roadmap, I had to just talk about that. But that does not mean that the official timetable is out. So whatever I said relating to the timeline, it's still not official. I just tried to give an understanding on our approach, right? What we have so far officially is for the large taxpayers, and which majority of them are aware. The last publication we did was on the Go Live, which was for November 1st, 2025, right? And since that publication, we've not made any announcement. Ordinarily, we're supposed to do the fifth milestone, which is the post-implementation review, which we're trying to do it in this first quarter, right? So all that, we're working on the dates to now come up with like a timetable for the expected roadmap for both all the categories of the taxpayer. So right now, I can't say of any specific timeline with respect to the medium and small. But what we're telling everyone is don't wait until that timeline, right? The law, what we have in the law is a mandate across all board. How we choose to implement is to the service. It doesn't have anything to do with the law, right? So even irrespective of what we're doing, the service can come up any day and say, okay, why are you not doing this? So if you are looking at it from the compliance aspect, then you don't have to wait until that announcement of timeline is done. So see it as an obligation for your business to comply with the mandate. I think that will solve you a lot of problems. What I can assure you is that the service cannot just come anytime and start to enforce non-compliance without proper notice, right? So, and that's why we're trying to work on that timeline that can give a guide to everyone that give an idea of when possibly that compliance enforcement will come up. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bawa, thank you. That was a very, very informative answer there, and I thank you for the clarification. Nwamaka, I think you're going to get the last word because we're over time. I think you raised your hand, so do share your comment and what you wanted to answer.
Okay, it was related to the invoicing and the person's question about Lagos State. So Mr. Bawa has clarified, and also the structure of invoices is always governed by the Nigerian Tax Act. Before, it used to be the value-added tax. So I'm in full alignment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this very engaging and informative discussion, the RedSpace webinar, E-Invoicing in Nigeria, Tax Regulatory and Compliance Demystified. So we just demystified, questions around, states integration and also timeline. Mr. Bawa cleared that up for us. Thank you, Mr. Bawa. Thank you, Nwamaka. Thank you, Adenike, Emmanuel Ojo, MD CEO. Thank you, Mr. Sise. Thank you to all our participants. Don't forget the referral programs to engage with RedPay so you can take advantage of that. Again, RedTech always has these very timely conversations. This is happening in January. It's going to be a very interesting year with all the tax laws in place. So great time. I'm Rotu Sudiri. It was great being a part of this discussion. Thank you all very much and have a very tax compliant 2026. You all take care.